Alright, let's start going through the rest of the stuff in here and cleaning it up. So let's get out two editors again and kind of split screen it. I know that right now it's after the window code. I don't know exactly what comes next, so we can actually look at this list here, and I see that it's my dialog UI code comes next. So with that, we can go into or not. Well, that's the problem. I just want it to. All right, so yeah, let's open these. And then let's put the functions on the other side. So we want data and functions, functions always on the right. Okay, with that, let's take a look and see what we can do to clean this up, or maybe it looks good enough. I'd say this personally looks pretty clean here. It's not too cluttered. I'm gonna say this is pretty clean here. Maybe we take this comment and we put it into the summary file. Same thing here. .data, .functions. We know it's .data and .functions because it has a .d and a .f. These are just structures needed by the DLL files that we invoke. We could just throw around void pointers, you know, because this is a lot of work to do. And you might be like, well, why are you recreating these from the documentation when you could just include like windows.h? Well, the thing is, I want to keep my environment as unpolluted as possible, so I'm trying to like only use exactly what I need, and so I'm not actually using any Windows headers in my project. I just kind of recreate parts of the header that I need as I'm going along. So I'd say this looks pretty good. We just need to open up the summary file. So in our documentation, we have a summary file. And we will just take, we know this comes after the GNOWIN, so right down here in the DUI stuff, so DUI. And I think maybe what we should do is, should we just, do this, or should we do it like this? I guess maybe like this, just so we can tell there's a difference. I don't know. So dialog UI, and then within this section, we'll just take this comment right here, dialog user interfaces, right? That's all it is. This literally Win32 specific dialogues. Okay, right, so dialog user interfaces, specifically Win32 specific dialogue, save us time. Example, color, MS Paint 95 color. It's a color picker dialog, and then we can just, there we go. So that's good enough. And then over here we can just get rid of this, right? We can just get rid of that header part, and then we can just get rid of this as well. We know it's data. We don't need to. We might just want to make a note, DUI.d underscore. Might just want to make a note there. But we don't have to be like really verbose about it. We can just kind of throw it in there like this, DUI.f, and then we're good. That's all we need to do. We can kind of like move on. Now, we should look at the documentation for the functions and the data, though. So the data and the functions documentation. And we're going to kind of flip it. So functions on the left, and then documentation for data on the right. And that's just so that when we have the data open here, the data source on the left, we can also have the documentation for it on the right. And we can kind of go through it and see what we're missing. So we see we did GNOIN, and now the next thing is we need to do a section for the DUI. So we'll take this and we'll kind of like rename this and just DUI. Do we want to just keep it? I don't know. Sure, why not? Whatever. So in this section, we also need this section for the functions. So let's go over to the functions, and then right after GNOIN, we'll put a little section for this, and then we'll take the F's and we'll replace them with D's. Okay. And now we'll take we'll look through the data file, and we'll kind of see what we need to put in here, right? For a high-level summary, all we really need is to take these typedef names, and let's not even worry about their exact structure. We just really want a high-level overview, so that's all we need. And then this guy right here, colorf. Do we want the whole thing, or do we want just let's keep with the habit of not using any of the namespace prefixes when we're in these areas, and just worry about the actual main name here. It'll also help us find things, like if somebody's new to this project and they know a little about Win32, they might be looking for specifically certain things like this and not be able to find them, and they might be a little bit confused. Maybe that'll be a good idea. I don't know. Let's close this and let's look at the functions and the function documentation. And we're going to open up our clipboard stack, and we are going to just cut and paste all of the function names here. So we got 3 functions. Loading some DLLs. We should probably have like a free library when we do this. Yeah, load DLL files. We're never freeing the DLL files, and I'm pretty sure that's a bad thing to do. One problem at a time, though, I guess. Oh, interesting. Is this still in a function? Well, it's still in a function. Okay, yeah. So just stuff that I'm like, blah, I don't know where this goes, whatever. Okay, that's fine. So take all these. And then we're good. And now, by taking off the prefix, we can't tell if these are public or private. So, like, maybe that's a bad idea. I don't know. But, you know, let's just keep on going and worry about if we're doing this perfectly later, you know. So, after DUI, it's GL bindings, so GL easy bindings. So let's open that up. So we got 2 files. Open them up. Put the functions on the other side. And let's take a look here. Refactor note, yeah, that's fine. That's a refactor note that, yeah, maybe we should have that refactor note, but maybe we should put it with the GL easy bindings rather than just in here. So, it's after GUI, right? So, in here, we're going to just take the GL easy bindings, and we will make a section for that. The thing is another thought I had is, well, if we start to change the order of these libraries, all the documentation stuff is going to be out of order. And that's true, so that, I mean, but I'd rather have clarity than flexibility, so let's keep going. This note here is really more of a summary thing, right? It's in the summary section, so we can do, right over here, we can take these comments here, and let's make a new section. We can just steal from the top and bottoms of things, and then we can do GL easy bindings. And then over here, we can do the same thing, GL easy bindings. And then we can just have a refactor note, That's fine for me. I think that might be important to note, so let's keep that there. Now this is also one of those things where it's just like a cluster of stuff that I don't really want to worry about, where, there's like just these notes and... There's not really as much data as I thought would be in here. Configuration for opens... So we could take some of this stuff, so CS, we could take some of this stuff, CS start, and we could just take this one, we could take this, okay, and then over here on the data section for the GL easy bindings, we can just do throw those in here. So we can do CS dump to clipboard stack dump, and we can kind of put all these things in here. We could actually keep a public-private list if we wanted to. Right, just keep like a nice little list of everything that's in here, right? So we don't actually want to worry about what the actual types here are. It's just a very high-level overview to help us wrap our head around what our options are when we're reasoning about this later. So we'll do okay, and then we'll take this. Okay. And I'm happy with that for the data documentation. So let's go over to the functions and see what kind of documentation for functions we need. Touch file, openGL search paths, and I don't really like splitting off the body like that. I mean, why did we do that? Do we have it on the bottom as well? Yeah, we do have it on the bottom. I think that it makes more sense to remove that, and let's clean this up. So we have a lot of kind of junk in here, and maybe we should, I think we should offboard some of this to some extracted comments. So let's hold on. So let's take this big comment on top of this function name that makes it really hard to notice where it is. You know, if not exist, add default contents. So I don't even know if that's implemented, but we'll just say hashtag if not exist, add default contents. And for this one, we're actually going to keep it verbatim without underscores, so that way when we double-click this, we can see that the hashtag directly matches the variable name. Now, that might change in the future, but I think it's good to have it like that for now, so the connection is as obvious as possible, and then we can go into our documentation, go into our hashtag kind of sections, and we can kind of like paste all that information, and we can just put that in here, right? And that's the reason why this is here rather than in the data documentation, is that we want the data documentation and the function documentation really just to be really short summaries, so they're almost just like header files for the functions and the data, right? Just quick summaries to let us know what's going on. And some of this stuff I just really don't want to, we really don't want to bother ourselves with it all the time. We just want to be able to find it if we really need to look for it. So we'll take that, and in this section we will just do a little hashtag, and we'll take this like that, you know, and we could also say it's an int, I believe, right now. So we could do int, and then give a little explanation, right? And I'm good with that. And then we can go further into here, right? So this is another big block of stuff that's kind of giving us a lot of visual clutter. And touch file function did not exist in gleb.h, added to glbind.h to make program a bit more user-friendly. Goal: make program as a single .exe file, no supplementary files needed to be copied to maintain a working executable. This function makes it so you don't have to copy around OpenGL search paths.txt. So that's actually really good. Why touch file so why GLEBIND touch file? So this is like why are we using this, basically, right? We need to know, we just want a little commentary on, well, why is this a thing that we're using, right? And we're in the hashtag comments, we can just paste that in there, right? So we have all this commentary. Once again, I think it's commentary that makes more sense here. Now, when we're coding, we can still put the commentary inlined, and then we can do like a cleanup pass later. And that might, if we're working in a big group of people, that actually might be the best way to do it, because if we're all getting our hands in the same hashtag file while we're developing, we're gonna have like merge conflicts and whatnot, so it might be best to like have people write all their comments inline, and then somebody else's job is just to go and extract those comments into like little hashtag comments that go into here, right? It'd be like a cleanup pass that one person does on the weekend when everybody else isn't working on it, right? So like closed for maintenance kind of a thing, right? So So yeah, that's good like that, and let's look at this. So we have another comment here. If OpenGL search path.txt does not exist, create it and populate it with some default values. See if file exists, then use. So once again, it's like, it looks like we got pretty meta here because we have if that file exists, then use, but then we like added more commentary again. So if file not if so that's a little bit long, so we'll have to figure out how to shorten that. So first of all, we could do GL. If no GL list, create one. So really that's what we want. If no GL list, create one, right? And really it's GL search paths, but it that's good enough to where we get the idea of what we mean, and we can kind of move on from there. Okay, and also I should probably check my stream manager to make sure nobody's like trying to talk to me while I'm doing this. So Twitch stream, and this is close all this. This is not. Yeah, let's use our other browser. So let's close. Yeah, let's just close all that. Let's close this. Let's open up Torch. Why did I tell it to remember my history? What the hell? Okay, put that there. And then we'll do Twitch dash. Look at our dashboard. Or not. Or we could just be stuck here forever, yeah? Okay. So we're good, no one's trying to get a hold of us or anything, so we're good there. Let's, keep on meticulously going through this, and then we'll take a break once we get all of this stuff, kind of tucked away. We're gonna move on. It's a lot of stuff that I just don't want to think about. Is it correct? I don't know. It works on my machine. Done, right? A lot of little ASCII diagrams to explain how we are finding things. That's fine. And we're not going to worry about cleaning all of this up. It's just, right, we got this one thing that, so these OpenGL type dusts that we commented out here, Um, yeah, I think this is just trash that's going to just, yeah, this is just, yeah, this is just trash that's going to confuse the hell out of us. I don't think we need this. This is probably left over from when we cut and pasted it anyways. Could be wrong, but let's just delete that, right? I don't think we don't need that. Let's delete that, move on. We could maybe take some time just to make this look a little bit better. And this is, so we're gonna add some spaces for emphasis here. And this is still kind of a mess. Right, because we have all this. We could take a look at this, maybe, and just clean it up while we're going. So we did all this, right, and we can see... So the reason I had for, like, separating everything into comments like this was then I could easily tell when something had been touched, right? Because I can look at it and be like, well, you've obviously been touched because everything is kind of misaligned, right? And when we're looking at like WGL get proc address, we can see like all this stuff is related. So we have this extra segmenting where we kind of went crazy with the comments, and really, I think it would make more sense to take away like all these comments, right? And to do something kind of like more like just this, right? Where we have some more space as well to work with. So I think it would be easier to work with it like this. And then, do we want an indentation level? I don't know. Right, we also wrote this like that just to make sure we see that they're kind of aligned and they're exactly spelled, so I might want to keep it like that. With this arg1, I don't know. So maybe keeping that aligned will be helpful. I don't know. So a lot of this is just very verbose and kind of more verbose than it needs to be. PFN, right? So this is, we're just returning this. And we might also want to make a note of, we might want to just align that like that, just so we can see that cast. And that's kind of like, meh, I don't know. Right, do we want to indent it as well? I don't know. Because we could indent this type def. We could actually, like, indent everything here like this. and this is for this function right here. Right, we could try to indent everything like that. I don't know if that's good or not. Or I almost feel like it makes more sense to just not be so excessive with our indentation. And we have this type def, and then there's all this other stuff that comes along with it that's kind of related to it, because everything is related to this type def. So keeping that indentation, I don't know. We're just going to take this and so when we're talking about this one, we're actually talking about this. So we should probably know what we're kind of trying to surround here. If that's, if that's our goal, to like surround this. Let's just get rid of this. Let's take all this. Let's take this big comment and be like, let's go into our master documentation, our hashtags, and just be like, this one's. We'll just take this and we'll just take all this clutter and we'll just say so we'll just call it GLEBIND. This one is special, and then that comment will kind of like be able to identify the library it came from. And we obviously have like a lot of bad indentation here where this is just all over the place. But let's take right, all this clutter, we're adding all this extra space. We can add right. And so we can add like a little section. We can keep these as like little section headers, right? And then we can indent this maybe. And right, there's the type def in here as well, so we could do maybe just some lines and just try to make it a little bit less, we can still make some solid delineation, but maybe not be this crazy. And maybe I'm just kind of going to revert to eventually not using commas anywhere, but this, to me, looks way too cluttered, and I know why I did it this way. I did it this way so I can see that it obviously has been changed, because I can see how this has been moved around, right? And that's kind of why I did it, but I don't know if that was really useful, right? If it compiles, and who cares if the names have been slightly changed, right? So we're going to take these things here, and we'll just take the comment characters from one side and put them on the other side, right? And yeah, that's all we need to do. So it does not require GL context to call. We might want to make that a comment. I don't know. I don't know if this is a... So let's not go around and clean up everything, right? So we took a little shot at cleaning this up. But yeah, so this is kind of like how I think it should be done. I think this is a little bit cleaner. I mean, this is still kind of like a mess here. And really, we should probably properly indent all this. So, you know, this is the body of the function. So we're going to call this... yeah, it's just kind of a mess. And are these different? I see why we kind of tried to line these up. So some defines might actually be helpful here, like I don't know where to put it, but like define CHK, and then define, so we can check if the function pointer is sated, right? And this will be and this will be a type, right? This is just a typecast here, so we can take this here and we can just say, right? So we want to do a little check, and we need a typecast, right? And that's all that's really happening, right? And then the same name is right there, that's fine. But now we can, let's get rid of some of that extra indentation. I don't know the exact proper indentation, but then over here, let's keep a little bit of space, and then just return yeah, return this call, but we can just you know, rather than having the args kind of separate like that, it's only one argument. I don't know why we want to, I know kind of why we did it that way, but let's not do it that way, right? Let's put this over here like that, and just make that a little bit nicer, right? Where everything kind of, all right, we see this one arg, and all of our args can still line up. That's fine. I guess, you know, we can be a little bit OCD there. But that looks a lot cleaner. Yes, everything to me is kind of a case-by-case basis, where I don't really, you know, there's some consistencies in my style, but there's a lot of inconsistencies where I do take things by a case-by-case basis and try to do, like, and just look at it and be like, what is best here, right? And so my opinion on what looks good can kind of change. So also these defines make more sense. My style of kind of like putting, like at a little section header, putting the defines right glued to there to make the divider kind of thicker, right? So there's a thicker, instead of having a 2-character division between the sections, we have like a 4-character division between the sections by kind of like gluing those up here like that. So I kind of like it like that. It is kind of like maybe a little cluttered. I don't know. But I would like to just keep the important details, right? Once we get down to the important details of the function, I'd like just to keep it as clear as possible and avoid a lot of clutter. So this is so I get why I separated it like this. So this is returns name and args. right? That's what is over here, right? We could make a little bit more space. One, right, and then yeah, we could do it like that. Okay, so we just know that's why we have this type def kind of separated into these layers so that we can clearly see what it returns, what its name is, what its arguments are. And, you know, we could clean up stuff forever. This is kind of like how I would like to clean up, but eventually we just got to be like, screw it, let's not worry about that it looks like shit because we decided to format stuff like this. Let's just move on, right? Because otherwise we could get stuck kind of like kind of to maintain all these pieces of code forever and forever. And there's also a point to maybe, you know, I try to like create my own bindings for stuff to avoid external dependencies, but now I just end up with a whole bunch of code that I have to maintain and that might better be maintained by other people, right? Like, if we have one library that already does this, right, like a GLFW, then, is it GLFW? I think it's GLFW. Oh, no, that's, no, those are the Windows version of the openGL functions. I mean, maybe that's what I mean. Let's look up GLFW really quick. Oh no, yeah, OpenGL library, GL function wrangler, right? So basically we're like taking things that probably are an OpenGL function wrangler, just trying to do it ourselves. And this is a lot of extra effort, right? Like, and then some crazy ass code to double check ourselves. And so if we made any subtle mistakes, now we got a problem because, you know, we used our own library and there's only one of us, but for people developing this, even though we're going to be dependent on a third-party dependency, the plus side is there's like a whole bunch of people who are working on this, and so you kind of get to leverage their intellectual power, right? There's more eyes on that code, so they're going to find things that that might be wrong. Whereas when you look at this code, it's just like, oh god, there's so much here, I give up, you know? So that looks nice to me. Right? And we can... Let's try to do like PF44 and see how that kind of... PF60? PF80 maybe? How about PF64? Nope. Okay, we have a PF50, so let's just do that. Let's just kind of use up a little bit more of this space, right? Oh. We can indent that, yeah. So we could massage this all day and never get anywhere. So let's, before we kind of continue, we've kind of done some things where it's possible that we made like a syntax mistake somewhere where we accidentally changed functionality. So we want to just run this really quick, make sure that we don't have any syntax warnings, and then we'll undo our error here. So let's go into the C11 file and let's turn off our crash on vital to-dos just to see that we can get compiling back to where we were. And yeah, so let's take this and let's just double click our build script, let's run it, make sure that it works. And so you can see that in a lot of cases you have a lot of code where you cannot possibly comprehend at all. It's like, it's too much. It's too much to remember it all, right? And so that's why I'm doing this library chain where we're kind of dividing our code into these sections, so that when we're like dividing and conquering to figure out where a problem is, now if we have a, so let's say we're dividing and conquering in this file. Let's say we have a problem in our project, we have no clue where it's happening, and we're dividing and conquering, and we find that the problem happens somewhere around here. Then we can be like, whew, that is a relief that it's happening somewhere here, because holy shit, this library is huge. I don't want to have to look at it, right? So there's a lot of stuff in here, and we'd rather not have to look at it. So by being able to compile up to or past this, we can see if this is the library that is introducing some type of weird undefined behavior when we kind of when we are kind of like dividing and conquering. And that's going to save us a lot of time and also give us some relief from the fact that we just cannot comprehend everything, right? There's just too much stuff, you know? So I would say that that these are, I get why I included them, because originally this was a standalone library, so it needed to include these things. But I bet we already have all this stuff already. So what we're going to do is we're going to comment all of this out really quick. And then we're going to see what runs, and then we'll add back everything that we need if it doesn't run, and then we'll add that to like our external dependencies. So we see that isSpace isn't working, right? So and we see that this was for isSpace. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this, and we're going to go into we're going to reorganize this and kind of centralize all these things that we include, just so what would be really bad is if the weird undefined behavior is happening because some type of main library is included and it's not actually a problem in our code. So if when we introduce the new sub-library, we're also introducing new libraries like this, then all of a sudden we have more places that we need to search, where we might falsely think it's the problem with our code when it's someone else's code. Chances are it's going to be our code, because this stuff is probably very well maintained and well looked after and well tested and has a lot of eyes on it. But you know, it could. But we want to eliminate that possibility, right? So we're gonna go over to the C11 and look at what we have. So we have libchan top, and that is what seems to be our build system. So let's go into there, and we probably have some basic includes. So if we go to libchan and we go to top, we'll see that we have some include directives, include directives standard libraries, right? So we can include this, and we can also, you know, we can also say used by GLEBIND, right? Used by GLEBIND, right? We could just, yeah, we could just do that like that. And, you know, there's other things that we need, but let's just see if that works, or if there's like other things that might be missing, right? Okay, so that seems to be like all we needed to get things compiling again, right? So everything is compiling again, and that's good for me. So we'll close this, and then we can So this is something I'm never going to remember, right? So this was a bad idea. And do we even have this? Do we have like MV underscore in places? So let's do MV underscore, and let's just do find in files and see, are we actually doing that? Like, do we have this like written in our code, or is this just a little comment? MV. Okay, so we do have MV in some places, so we might want to know like what the hell that's about. So we're gonna take so what we're going to do is we're going to just take these notes and we're going to take all these notes, and I think that a lot of that is information that's kind of interesting, but it's like it's not stuff I want to look at right away. So we're going to take that and just dump it into the hashtag stuff. So the hashtag stuff is just like one master file where like all the comments are, and the reason why we're kind of like doing everything like this, where we're kind of like dumping everything into this master file, is because if we have everything, if we have all of our comments, all of our commentaries spread about in multiple files, it's going to make it an administrative nightmare to find all that commentary, right? Where we've offboarded the comments to different files, but if we separate everything into too many files, then we have to think about where the hell to find that comment, right? And we don't want to make it that difficult to find the commentary. Yes, people aren't going to look at the comments usually, but we don't want to make it like super difficult if somebody were to look at those comments, right? So we're gonna take all of this stuff, and we cannot use multi-line comments in here, so we'll get rid of that. And then for the includes, there's no multi-line stuff in here, and we can kind of like clean this up and make it fit to our column limit. And you know, we commented that stuff out, and we can just say see hashtag extracted GLEBIND clutter nodes, right? So it's like if we want to know about this, right, we might want to know about this, about like how we're using these things, but eventually it's like eventually it just becomes clutter, and we really just don't want to worry about it, right? So now, like I said, right, we have a lot of comments, and so I can definitely see why people wouldn't like comments in code, because as the code changes, those comments aren't going to be relevant anymore. So the other thing is, since we're going to paste everything into this file where the newest comments are always at the top of the file, we can hopefully kind of create kind of a history of what is actually relevant, right? So let's look at our data. So actually, we're looking at our data already. Let's look at the data documentation. So this is still GLEBIND, and we have taken all those functions and made like a little summary of what that is. And let's look at the functions and the function documentation. So in GLEBIND, we haven't really separated this into anything yet. There's probably like a lot of stuff in here where it's like, do we really want to take it all? But let's take some stuff, maybe some of the important stuff. So touch file, OpenGL search paths, and copy copy that, copy that, copy that. And as long as for everything we have in here, we have a, as long as we're really consistent with our namespacing, we don't have to, include the namespace in the list of function names, right? Because the namespace is like an extra piece of noise because it's on everything, right? So a lot of times the namespace just serves to be noise, and that gets really annoying. But it's also very useful to know where certain things are coming from. And the benefit of being able to follow the code and know where different pieces of code comes from, that benefit greatly outweighs the downside of having the extra visual clutter. From my experience, and I've done a lot of things with experimenting with that. Like I even made like macros that will it'll be a macro that wraps this name to stick the namespace on it, but then we look at the file without the namespace because this name is wrapped in a macro that sticks the prefix on it. And but even that is that leads to a whole bunch of problems because when your code has compile errors in it, when your code has compile errors in it, then it just makes some things a lot harder. Because the macros just make the error messages in your code like a lot harder to comprehend. It just clutters up the error messages just a lot, and yeah. This is a type def, so let's not take this type def. Let's take WGL get proc address. And then we have all these PFNs, and then we kind of wrap them in. Right, we wrap them in functions that we can actually use. And at one point I liked the idea of creating a library struct, but then it just creates more than one way to call the code. And it also introduces more places for null pointer dereferences, also known as segfaults. So I've tried to kind of avoid that as well. So why is this just called GL gen buffers? So I don't like that. So that would make it so that I can't add any openGL headers because we're using it like exactly as it would appear. Draw arrays. But yeah, just taking an just taking a inventory of what we have in here is a good idea. I'm sure there's like automated libraries that we can do for this, but it also gets us acquainted with it, because us going over it is also getting it into our brain as well, and getting it into our brain is going to be slower than what a computer can do. Like, a computer can automatically build the index that we're building right now, but it's going to help us. It's going to help us get an idea of what's in here and get a feel for it, right? Because it's been a long time, anyways. And it gives me an idea of what are the actual important OpenGL library calls. And the important OpenGL library calls are the ones that are in here, because these are the ones that like I'm actually using somewhere for some reason, right? Right, because I built this binding library just for me, right? It's just the functions that I need to use. So there's not any extra stuff in here. It's all stuff that I've used for some reason. So as my OpenGL abilities improve and I'm just better at things and I'm more sophisticated, then there'll be more functions that I need to add to here. But as far as now, it's just everything that I personally use, so there's less distraction, even though this looks ugly as hell, this code here. Let's see what else we got. GL clear color, GL gen vertex arrays, GL bind vertex array, GL gen textures, GL bind texture. There's a lot of stuff in here. Text parameter I, GL text parameter I, GL text image 2D, GL text image 2D, GL active texture, GL get uniform location, GL uniform 1I, GL pixel store I believe I need that for integer textures. GL enable, GL finish. Oh, that was the wrong one. GL finish. GL get integer v. And then an alert function that's in a very odd place. And then it looks like an attempt at a library struct where I just got way too complicated here. It's just way too complicated here. I'm not gonna worry about that. This is just too much bullshit. And it's just stuff that, when I'm looking at it, I don't think I want to concern myself with it. It's like, I put, like, you know, a lot of, like, OpenGL constants kind of in this library, and some of that stuff is stuff I don't really want to concern myself with outside of this library, so we won't even put it in the little documentation list here that we're using, right? We'll just keep it over here, right? And this is kind of long here. But you know what? It is for each section, so, you know, even though this is long, and, you know, we shouldn't be afraid of long sections, the idea is that we want one file where we can kind of see all of this stuff concentrated, right? So even though it is kind of long, let's just shove it in there, right? And so we just have this nice list of, here's all of the stuff we have, right? Right, this nice little index. I think that nice little index is good. We have a public and private version of this. We're just gonna forget about the fact that we have two versions of that, and we're just gonna take away all of this. We're not gonna worry about if it's public or private. That's just too granular as far as I'm concerned right now. So this is everything. This is not everything, but this is kind of the most important stuff that we have in the GL bindings, you know. So now that we've kind of gone through there, the next thing is, do we have the data? Do we have the data for GL bindings? So GL bind, the data. Now there's other stuff. So we could also do a PFN variable exists for every single binding we expose, but adding that here will just be noise. Right? So since we're doing this by hand and we're hand building indexes, we can have some leisure as to how we do it. We can actually omit things that maybe are just clutter, right? And there's a PFN variable for every one of these functions here. There's a corresponding PFN variable, but I think that that would just be clutter. We really don't want to know about those PFN variables. It has no bearing on the wider scope of the project. It's just the functions, the bound functions that we want to call, that's more important to know. So let's not even worry about extracting that. So we've looked at this, we've taken a good look at it. We have some clutter, we have some ridiculous error checking stuff, and a lot of this clutter is from trying to create a library struct to call things. And I don't know if that was a good idea or not. You know, syntactically, it can be nice to call things like that, but I don't know. That's how we do it right now, so that's the way we're going to keep it for now. Let's make sure everything still runs, because we've kind of mucked around in there, and there's the possibility that while I was cutting and pasting token names, that maybe I pasted over something rather than cut it, right? So there's that mistake I could have made. Doesn't look like I made a mistake, because everything is still running, but you know, I could have maybe wrecked the signature of some type of function call that I am not currently using in the project, right? So I have all these bindings. They're just supposed to be bindings that I use, but some of them might be bindings that I used for a previous project, right? So what if I accidentally wrecked the signature for a openGL call that I'm not currently calling in the project, right? And then we ran the project, and the project still runs, but we actually broke something, and we don't even know about it, and it's going to be a month from now when we try to use that function that we realize, oh shit, it's broken. And so that's what I mean about there's no such thing as a trivial refactor, because we're just cutting and pasting, but there's still the potential to accidentally break something while we're doing that. So we got to be very careful and very paranoid. So I'd say we're done kind of documenting the GL easy bindings. We might want to make an actual summary here. openGL easy bindings. Right, we might want to make an explanation of what that is. And that's good. Let's close that and kind of continue on to the other things we need to look at. So this libchan, right, we just added the is space because it's used by GLEBIND. And the thing is, you know, even though we don't need to include this when we are not compiling up to here, it's just so that we know that when we add this GLEBIND sublibrary, that it's not going to be this include that's causing the problem. It's going to be some of our code that's including the problem. So we want to front load all of the sublibraries dependencies right at the start of this project, and it's going to be no matter what library we compile up to, we're always including these dependencies, right? And it's just going to give us some sanity of mind when we're trying to find problems that we're creating for ourselves. Because we know we're going to make problems for ourselves, so we need to organize the code in a way where we're going to be able to find the mistakes somehow, right? So let's look at what's next. So in our library chain, we did GLEBIND, and now we need to do CPUNIFO, and that stands for CPU uniforms. So the U is kind of shared between CPU and uniform, and this name I always spell wrong because I think of it as CPUINFO all the time, and that's not what it is, but I keep on reading this backwards, right? I keep on reading that as info, but that's not what it is. I guess we should just call it CPUNIFO, and then just remember that it's for CPU side uniform. So let's look at that and see what kind of things we can extract from it. And so we have this editor open, and so we're going to open up the CPU. Okay, and then we will drag the data to the other side, right? So we have, oops, wrong data, then functions, right? Data, then functions. So therefore, data should be on the left, functions on the right. And this looks much cleaner. It's probably I probably wrote this at a much later date, I'm sure, and I definitely like that this looks a lot cleaner than the other stuff I was writing. So, but let's reduce some of this clutter, right? So we do have these cluttered comments, and I think we should offboard them to documentation. So, see CPU info. So, okay, so it's telling me to see this file for the documentation. And that's a good idea to say, instead of duplicating this comment, to make this little note here, right? So I do like that I had the thought of removing redundancies like that, but we're actually going to take this documentation stuff and we're going to move it somewhere else. So CPU, so this is a decent summary where it's a little bit long, but it's just the amount of summary I think we need. So therefore, we're going to go into here, and we're going to go CPU NIFO for CPU uniforms, and then we're going to just paste the summary comment down in here, right? And then we'll have to reformat a little bit to make it kind of fit in here. But CPU NIFO. Okay, and we will take once we get rid of the block comments that are kind of like all these weird comment characters that are kind of surrounding it. A lot of the will like have enough room, right? So clean that up. And we might want an explanation of what that is. So CPU NIFO, CPU uniforms. Okay, and also we can add some more indentation, I guess, if we want. And that's good there, right? So we're just taking that documentation and we're putting it somewhere else, right? And the reason why we're offboarding this documentation to a summary file is, you know, somebody who's already familiar with this doesn't want to check that out, right? So we could also make a comment like C doc/s S D or SD or F. SDF. What is SDF? That sounds like something. SDF. Let me look that up really quick. Oh, sign distance function. That's why I'm thinking that makes sense. Right, so documentation, most of the documentation is here, except for this off-boarded comment. Let's read what this is. XYZW, these will be backed into a vec4 when loaded into iMouse uniform. Decided to label these as their actual values in GLSL code rather than their usage. Reason, I might not correctly understand what these values should be, and I don't want to have the variable names that lie in my code. Okay, so there is a reason for why I use these names. So we could do, we could make a little comment here and be like, why these iMouse names, right? So we could make a little comment for why these iMouse names, and then we can go into our hashtagged comments, and we can take that block comment, and we can take the actual code that we're referencing, right? Just so that we know what we're talking about there. And there's no multi-line comment characters in here, so we can actually just keep it formatted as that is. And it's good to know why we did what we did. It's just that when we're actually already acquainted with the code base, we don't want all this distraction, right? So we're trying to pack away information that we're going to use less frequently off into the documentation. And then if we're like, if our question is why do we have these names here, we're going to see why these iMouse names. And so you read the top comment here, and if you have the question of why do I have these names and you really want to know that answer, you can see that, oh, this comment says that it has the answer, so we'll go into the documentation and see what that's all about, right? Okay, so now let's look at the functions, and the functions already look pretty clean. We have a to-do here. So I'm going to keep this to-do here, because I actually don't know what the hell I'm doing with mouse Z and W, and I know that because my shaders aren't working exactly as they would work when taken from ShaderToy. So the idea is, I want my shader code to be as compatible with ShaderToy as possible, just because I think that it makes it easier for me to cut and paste from ShaderToy. It makes it easier for me to take code that I've been working on and paste it into ShaderToy, and it eliminates some thought for me. Like, I don't have to think about what to call the resolution variable. I'm just going to call it iResolution because that's what ShaderToy uses, right? Now, the downside of that is my code base, my way of naming variables is different than ShaderToy's way of naming variables. So now we kind of have these variables that have this totally different style in them, right? This camel case style, and I don't really use camel case for variable names. I try to stick to camel case for functions, and then underscores for variable names, just so I can visually see the difference. But so we have that inconsistency, but I think it's good to do this just so that when I see iMouse, I automatically know that iMouse and iResolution have some relationship to ShaderToy, right? And I know that they are, and I know that they're uniform variables as well. So that information is useful, and so that's why I name it that way. So let's look at why iMouse names. Also, we might want to make one more comment. Hashtag why I whatever for uniform names. Or uniform naming convention. So uniform naming convention is going to, we're just going to paste that in there really quick because I've explained some things that aren't really, they're hinted at in this big comment basically hints at that, but it doesn't explicitly say it, so we want to be a little bit more explicit. Uniform names are direct copies of shadertoy.com uniform names. That way I don't have to, I don't have to think about what to call them. I can easily cut plus paste to or from shader toy. That way. So, uniform names are copies of shadertoy.com uniform names. That way I don't have to think about what to call them, and I can easily cut paste to from shadertoy.com. So, that's a, so yeah, just having this little comment here I think is helpful. We also have enough room here where we could indent. I don't know if we should add superficial indentation. That's good enough for me. Let's, yeah, so that's good for me. I think that we've done a good job splitting that up. Let's look at our data. So let's actually add, so uniform names come after GL easy bindings, right? So GL easy bindings and then uniform names, correct. So I just want to make absolutely sure before we start doing this. So we're going to take, we're going to create a new section. So we're going to take, we're just going to cut and paste and rename, right? So take these, and then we're going to go CPUNIFO. And then within here, we're going to add the things that are in there, right? So this is already a pretty clean summary, but maybe it could be just a little bit cleaner if we just make a nice, concise list of everything that is here, right? So we can do CS dump, and we can just do that, and now we have a nice little list of everything that is in the data, right? And then we can do the same thing for the functions. So we open up these functions, and there is only one thing here, and it is originally, before we did our refactor, we had all the different uniform updatings like in all these different places, and it was a disaster. And it looks like now we've kind of MX the width and the height and the I time, right? We now have centralized where all of that is updating, rather than it being the spaghetti code it was before. So that's actually pretty good. Let's go into our function documentation and create a section for that. Let's so right here, let's take this, let's paste, let's shuffle it, and then we'll rename. So we have CPUNIFO and CPUNIFO. That needs to be longer. Open that up. And let's, actually we don't need to do that because there's only one function name here, right? Loop tick. Updates all uniform values. So the idea is to right? So everything is centralized and it's nice. Yeah. Let's keep going. So that looks good to me. Let's double check. Let's make sure that everything is still running. Make sure we didn't do anything stupid. Looks like we're good. And project is still running. Okay, so close that. Control C. Okay. Let's look at the list of what we have next on our agenda. So now you have this gradient quad is the next item on the list. So in here, let's just do gra quad for gradient quad. And almost screwed up there. And I'm like, why do I have this? Why is there one level of indentation here? I think I just liked having that extra level of indentation. Not having the indentation kind of bothered me, even though it's, you know, basically the whole thing is indented. So it's like, what was the point? I don't know. There's just something aesthetically I liked about having an indentation level here. So we'll keep that for now. It doesn't seem to be a problem. If anything, it encourages us to be a little bit more terse with how we do things. And then in the data section, we're going to take this gra quad and we're going to put it underneath the CPU uniform stuff. So right there, and then we'll just replace this with D's, right? D's for data. Okay, so let's look at the different files we have in our library. So CPU, wait, that's not what we're doing. We're doing gra quad. So gra quad, and we see that we have, for whatever reason, we have a C, D, and F, and a frag. Oh boy! So we have some more stuff than usual. Okay, so this is like a class struct. I don't know if this was a good idea, but that's just how it was from when we kind of like put it together. That could be, yeah. I stopped doing library structs, but you know, that's there, right? So the gradient quad has two shaders. So when we set up the basic shaders, right, for gradient quad, we just want to get a basic shader working. It's called a gradient quad, but the idea is just to get a gradient quad that we can then map shader code to. So the gradient quad is just the frag chords. And so we have two functions. So we have a syntax error function, and then we have an iReady function. So the idea is that we just need these two functions to give us basic functionality to make sure that we have visual confirmation that we're actually getting the code to run properly, right? And we will just take these function names, and within the data file, so this data, or not the data file, the function file, we're kind of doing this backwards. So this is a syntax error shader code. And then also in here we have, oh wait, hold on. I am all over the place. So actually this is data, right? It's because it's d.frag, so I'm in the wrong file here. Shader, OpenGL is ready shader code. Okay, so let's take this and let's go to our data stuff, and it actually needs to be in data, and it actually needs to be in a section for graquad.d.frag, right? So that's the section. And now that we have that, we can go up here and be like, these are just,
Hey,
yeah.
let's go for a walk.
Okay, yeah, hold on, let me just...
Right now.
Right now?
Right now.
Okay, hold on, let me save this code. 2 default shaders only. So I just want to make a little hashtag comment that it's 2 default shaders only, right? Rather than that big summary of why we want it that way, we're just going to say 2 default shaders only. Then our little hashtag comments, we're going to take all of that, and we can make a note here, and we can say that, you know, extracted from, and then graquad.d.frag. We can make a note on the date. We can say that the date was 2020.12.05, right? And we can make a note of when it was extracted, where it was extracted from, to keep like a little history of where this came from. And then, and so that's a good design. And so this is kind of telling us why there's only 2 shaders in here, why we're not putting all the other default shaders in the same spot, right? Why are we not consolidating it? And the reason has to do with our layering approach of how we're layering code on top of each other. But anyways, I gotta go. So I'll be back later. And we'll just kind of continue cleaning this up, and yeah, we'll just continue cleaning this up when we get back. So let's absolutely make sure this still runs before we get up. I do not want to get up and then come back to this and realize that that I broke something and it's crashed. So let's have a little sanity check here, make sure this works, and then we're gonna close the stream and we'll do this later. So okay, so things still work, we're good, and we'll get out of here and I'll be back later.